Every war has a moment when retreat becomes impossible, when the lines are drawn so clearly that there's no middle ground left, when you either stand and fight or surrender everything you believe in. For the Miller family, that moment came on a cold December morning when machines rolled through their gate and corporate greed finally showed its true face. They say you can't stop progress, that the modern world always wins, that 3 people in a herd of bison can't stand against bulldozers and lawyers and the full weight of a corporation that measures victory in quarterly earnings. But they've never met Barron. They've never seen what happens when a 2,000-pound guardian decides that some ground is worth defending, when ancient instinct meets modern arrogance, when the wild refuses, absolutely refuses, to be conquered. This is the story of the last stand at Broken Compass Ranch, when a teenage girl stood in front of a bulldozer, when her father fought with numbers instead of fists, when her mother turned cameras into weapons, and when Barron showed the world what it means to be a guardian. Some battles are won with force, some with strategy, and some are won simply by refusing to move, by saying no, by standing your ground and letting the world break itself against your certainty. This is that story, the final chapter of the Devil's Throat War, the moment when the Miller family stopped running and started roaring. Welcome to the last stand, where courage met calculation, where nature met technology, and where one family proved that some things, some places, some legacies, some bonds are worth everything. Jack was in the barn at dawn when he heard the vehicles. Not 1 or 2, but many. The sound of multiple engines, heavy equipment, purposeful approach. He stepped outside and his blood ran cold. Coming up the ranch road was a convoy, 2 sheriff's vehicles leading. Behind them, a black SUV he recognized. Behind that, 3 flatbed trucks carrying bulldozers and excavators, and bringing up the rear a construction crew van and what looked like a mobile command center. This wasn't a visit. This was an invasion. Sheriff Morrison stepped out of the lead vehicle, his face troubled. Behind him emerged Marcus Thorne, Sarah Vance, and a man Jack didn't recognize. Late 50s, expensive suit, the bearing of someone used to being obeyed. "Jack Miller," the stranger said, not waiting for introduction. "I'm Raymond Garrett, General Counsel for Cascade Energy Solutions. I have a court order authorizing immediate access to this property for mineral rights extraction purposes." He held out papers, official letterhead, multiple signatures, judge's seal. Jack took them with shaking hands, trying to read through the legal language. "This says you have mineral rights. That's impossible. My father never—" "Your father," Garrett interrupted, "signed a mineral lease agreement in 2018, 7 years duration. Section 4, paragraph 12 grants Cascade full access rights to conduct extraction operations upon lease maturity, which occurred 30 days ago. We've been patient, Mr. Miller, but our patience has expired." He produced another document, a contract, multiple pages, technical language about mineral rights, extraction procedures, payment schedules, and at the bottom a signature that looked exactly like Silas Miller's handwriting. "That's fake," Jack said immediately. "My father would never—" "Whether you believe it or not is irrelevant," Garrett said coldly. "The contract is legal, properly witnessed and court-validated. Sheriff Morrison has verified our permits. We're moving equipment onto the property today. You can cooperate or you can be removed for obstruction. Your choice." Sheriff Morrison stepped closer, his voice low. "Jack, I'm sorry. I looked at everything. The signatures check out. The witnesses are real people who swear they saw Silas sign. The judge reviewed it yesterday and issued the access order. My hands are tied." "Morrison," Jack said desperately, "you knew my father. Would he have signed away the ranch's mineral rights?" The expression on the sheriff's expression was troubled. "People do strange things when they're desperate, Jack. Silas had debts. Maybe he thought he could take the money and still protect the surface land. Maybe—" "No!" the voice came from behind him. Maya, emerging from the house, still in her pajamas, the bone whistle hanging round her neck. "Grandpa would never, not for any amount of money. That signature's a lie." "Young lady," Garrett said with false patience, "I understand this is emotional, but legal reality is that you forged a document to steal our land, and now you're hiding behind sheriffs and judges and paperwork, hoping we'll be too scared to fight back." "Maya," Liz said, coming out behind her, "let your father handle this." But Jack was staring at the signature, his accountant's eye catching something. The flow of the letters, the pressure of the pen, the tiny details that most people wouldn't notice, but the years of examining financial documents had trained him to see. "This wasn't signed in 2018, Jack said slowly. "Look at the ink, the oxidation pattern. This signature's maybe 6 months old, maybe less." Garrett's expression didn't change, but something flashed in his eyes. "That's a baseless accusation. The document has been properly authenticated by handwriting experts." "Experts you paid for," Jack countered. "Sheriff, I want this document examined by an independent forensic analyst. The ink dating alone will prove it's a forgery." "That'll take weeks," said Morrison. "Meanwhile, the court order stands. I have to enforce it." "Then we appeal," Jack said. "We file for an emergency injunction. We move the equipment onto the property now, while you file whatever motions you want. But once we're operational, Mr. Miller, getting us removed becomes exponentially more difficult. Possession, as they say, is 9/10 of the law." He signaled to the construction crews. Engines roared to life. The bulldozers started rolling off their platforms. Jack looked at Sheriff Morrison. "You're really going to let this happen?" "I don't have a choice," Morrison said quietly. "I've got a valid court order. If you've got evidence it's based on fraud, bring it to a judge. But right now, today, I have to let him through." The first bulldozer started toward the gate. Its blade was raised, ready to push through if necessary. The driver's face was impassive, just doing a job, not caring about the family watching their world collapse. Maya stepped in front of it.
"Maya, no," Lee screamed. But Maya planted her feet in the center of the driveway, directly in the bulldozer's path. A bone whistle gleamed against her chest. Her hands were empty. Her face was set with Miller's stubbornness, elevated to something harder, something unbreakable. "You'll have to run me over," she said quietly. The bulldozer kept coming, slow, inevitable. 20 feet away, 15. The driver honked, gestured for her to move. Maya didn't budge. 10 feet. The driver stopped, cut the engine, leaned out. "Miss, I don't want to hurt anybody. I'm just doing my job. Please move." No. Jack was running toward his daughter, but Lise caught his arm. "Wait," she said. "Look." She was pointing past Maya, toward the pasture beyond the gate. Movement. The entire herd, all 30 bison, moving together with purposeful coordination. And at their head, massive and terrible and beautiful, was Baron. The great bull walked through the open gate and positioned himself behind Maya. Not touching her, not aggressive, just present. A living wall between the girl and the machines. A statement written in fur and horn and 2,000 pounds of absolute refusal. And then the rest of the herd followed. They arranged themselves in a line behind Baron, creating a barrier 20 animals deep. Cows with calves, young bulls, the older females who'd survived decades of Montana winters. All of them choosing, in whatever way their ancient minds made such choices, to stand with the girl who'd learned to speak their language. "Holy hell," Sheriff Morrison breathed. The construction workers had stopped. The bulldozer driver climbed down from his machine, unwilling to risk harming the animals. The crew gathered in uncertain clusters, looking to Garrett for direction. Marcus Thorne stepped forward, his voice carrying across the standoff. "This is illegal obstruction of a court-ordered operation. Sheriff, arrest that girl, disperse those animals, use whatever force is necessary." Morrison didn't move. "Marcus, I'm not shooting a teenage girl or a herd of bison because your paperwork says you can dig holes on their ranch. The court order doesn't cover killing livestock or endangering minors," Morrison said flatly. "You want to force this? Get an animal control order. Get child services involved. Get a federal wildlife permit. But I'm not doing your dirty work." Marcus Thorne pulled out his phone, already dialing. "Fine, we'll get every authorization you need, but by the end of today, those animals will be sedated and removed, and that girl will be in custody for obstruction." "Try it," Maya said, and her voice carried something of barren certainty, something wild and untamable. "Call whoever you want, bring whatever you need. We're not moving." Lise had been watching this unfold with growing understanding. Now she pulled out her own phone and started recording. "Jack, call that reporter, the one who left a message. Tell them there's a story happening right now." "Lise, what do you—" "Trust me. Call everyone, every news station, every paper, every social media contact we have. Tell them a corporation is trying to bulldoze a teenage girl and a herd of American bison. Make this viral." Jack understood immediately. They couldn't win a legal fight, not quickly enough, but they could win a PR war, could turn public opinion into a weapon that even Cascade's lawyers couldn't defend against. He started making calls. Within minutes, he had interest from 3 local news crews. Within 30 minutes, the first news van was pulling up the ranch road. The reporter who arrived first was Amy Chan from KMTV Helena. Young, ambitious, with the instinct of someone who recognized a story that could make a career. Her cameraman started filming immediately, Maya standing firm, Baron behind her, the construction equipment looming, the corporate lawyers looking increasingly uncomfortable. "Mr. Miller," Amy approached Jack with practiced professionalism, "can you explain what's happening here?" Jack took a breath and did what he did best. He explained, calmly, methodically, with numbers and facts and the precision of an accountant who'd built a career on finding discrepancies. "Cascade Energy Solutions claims my father signed a mineral lease in 2018, but my father kept meticulous records, every contract, every agreement, every financial transaction. I've spent the last 3 months going through his files. There's no lease, no correspondence about mineral rights, no payment records for the substantial sum they claim they paid him."
He pulled out his laptop, which he'd grabbed from the house. On screen was a spreadsheet showing Silas's complete financial history. Here, every deposit into my father's accounts from 2015 to 2021. The largest single deposit was $8,000 from the sale of bison meat. There's no payment from Cascade, no $250,000 lease payment they claim they made. Amy's cameraman zoomed in on the spreadsheet. This was good television, numbers as drama, accountancy as detective work. More than that, Jack continued, warming to his subject, look at the signature on their contract. He held up the forged document next to a genuine Silas Miller signature from a 2019 bank document. My father had slight arthritis in his right hand. See how his genuine signature shows hesitation on the downstrokes, the pressure variations? That's consistent across every document he signed for the last 5 years of his life. He pointed at the Cascade contract signature. This signature is smooth, confident, no hesitation, no pressure variation. It was either signed by someone without arthritis or it was traced from an exemplar. Either way, it's not authentic. Raymond Garrett stepped front of the camera. This is absurd. We had the signature authenticated by certified experts. Experts you hired, Jack said. I want it examined by independent forensic document analysts. I want ink dating. I want paper analysis. Everything that'll prove this contract is a fraud created after my father's death to steal mineral rights he never sold. Those tests take time. Then we wait, Jack said firmly, because I'm not letting you destroy my family's ranch based on a forged document. Amy Chen was scribbling notes, her eyes bright. This was the story. Not just corporate greed, but fraud, forgery, a family fighting back with intelligence and courage. Her camera caught everything. Jack's spreadsheets, the suspicious signature, Garrett's increasingly defensive posture. Mr. Garrett, Amy turned to the lawyer, will Cascade agree to independent forensic analysis of this contract? We've already had it authenticated by experts you paid for. Are you afraid of what independent analysis might show? Garrett's jaw tightened. This is a legal matter, not a trial by the media. Then why are you trying to bulldoze private property before the legal questions are resolved? Amy's smile was sharp. That seems like the action of someone who knows their paperwork won't survive scrutiny. Behind them, more news vans were arriving. Word was spreading. This was becoming the story of the day. Underdog family versus corporate giant, with compelling visuals of a teenage girl and a massive bison standing against bulldozers. Raymond Garrett pulled Sarah Vance aside, their conversation urgent and hushed. Jack couldn't hear the words, but he could read the body language. This wasn't going to plan. The PR disaster was unfolding in real time, and every minute they argued on camera made it worse.
While Jack fought with spreadsheets and Amy Chen's camera captured everything, Maya stood her ground in front of Baron. The great bull hadn't moved, hadn't shown aggression. He simply existed, massive, patient, immovable. The herd behind him was equally calm. They grazed nearby, unbothered by the machines and humans. Their presence wasn't angry or frightened. It was just there, a statement of fact. This is our land. We belong here. You don't. One of the construction workers approached Maya carefully, his hands visible, his posture non-threatening. "Miss, I got kids your age. I don't want trouble, but I got a job to do. What's it gonna take for you to move?" "The truth," Maya said simply. "Proof that my grandfather actually signed away our rights. Real proof,
not forged documents. That's above my pay grade, the worker said. I just drive equipment. Then don't drive it here, because I'm not moving, and neither is he, she gestured to Barron. And if you try to force it, you'll be the one on camera when something goes wrong. The worker looked at the news cameras, now 4 of them, all filming. He looked at Barron, at the scarred eye that seemed to measure his soul. He looked at his bulldozer, suddenly seeming small and inadequate. I'm not paid enough for this, he muttered, and walked back to the construction crew. Several others followed him. Within minutes, half the crew had climbed back into their van, unwilling to be part of whatever this was becoming. Jack saw the moment when the battle turned. Garrett was on his phone, his voice sharp. Thorne and Vance stood apart, clearly arguing about something. The remaining construction workers were refusing orders, pointing at the cameras, at Maya, at the scarred eye of Barron's imposing presence. Sheriff Morrison approached Jack quietly. I got a call from the judge. He's seen the news coverage. He wants both sides in his chambers tomorrow morning for an emergency hearing on the contract's validity. Until then, all work is suspended. Suspended? Jack repeated, hardly daring to believe. The judge is concerned about the signature discrepancies you raised. He wants independent analysis before allowing any further action. Morrison glanced at the cameras. Also, I think he's worried about the optics of forcing this through while there are national news crews filming a girl and a bison standing up to bulldozers. Jack felt something release in his chest. Not victory, not yet, but breathing room, time, a chance to prove what he knew in his bones, that Cascade had forged Silas's signature and tried to steal what they couldn't buy. Garrett was shouting now, his professional composure cracking. This is obstruction. We have rights. The lease is valid. Then you'll prove it in court. But today you're leaving this property, now, before I start arresting you for trespassing. Trespassing? We have a court order. Had a court order. It's been suspended pending investigation. You're now on private property without permission. You've got 60 seconds to clear out before I start making arrests. The next few minutes were chaos. Garrett made more phone calls, his voice rising. Vance tried to salvage the PR disaster, giving statements to cameras that rang hollow. Thorne watched it all with cold calculation, already planning the next move. The construction crews packed up quickly, relieved to escape the situation. The bulldozers were driven back onto flatbeds. The equipment trucks started their engines. As the convoy began to leave, Marcus Thorne approached Jack. His smile was thin and dangerous. Enjoy your temporary victory, Miller. We'll be back with documentation you can't challenge, with warrants you can't block, with solutions you can't imagine. Get off my property, Jack said quietly. Thorne's smile widened. It's not yours much longer. He pulled out his phone as he walked to the SUV, making a call before he even reached the vehicle. Jack couldn't hear the words, but he read the body language, the sharp gestures, the aggressive tone. And then, just before climbing into the SUV, Thorne looked directly at Barron and said something that made Jack's blood run cold.
After the convoy left, the news crews lingered for interviews. Amy Chen captured Maya's statement, her young face fierce and certain. They can bring all the machines they want, all the lawyers, all the forged papers. We're not leaving. This is our home, our legacy, and we'll defend it.
The footage of Maya standing in front of Baron, the bone whistle visible against her chest, made every evening broadcast in Montana and several national networks. The story had everything: family drama, corporate villainy, environmental stakes, and the irresistible visual of a teenage girl protected by a massive bison. By nightfall, the ranch was quiet again. The Millers sat on the porch, exhausted but victorious, temporarily victorious at least. "Tomorrow's hearing will be critical," Jack said. "We need to prove beyond doubt that the signature is forged. I've already contacted 3 independent forensic document examiners. They can do rush analysis." "That will cost money we don't have," Liz pointed out. "Clayton's organizing a legal defense fund," Jack replied. "Turns out the story touched a nerve. People are donating. Not enough to solve everything, but enough to hire experts and lawyers." Maya was quiet, watching Baron on the distant ridge. The great bull had returned to his post after the confrontation, standing watch as always, but something was different, more alert, more tense. "He knows it's not over," Maya said. "He can sense it. Whatever they're planning next, it's bigger than bulldozers." "What could be bigger?" Liz asked. Jack pulled out his phone and played a video one of the workers had recorded and sent anonymously. It showed Thorne making his phone call. The audio was muffled, but Jack had cleaned it up as much as possible. "Outtail failed. Bring in the specialists. If we can't have the land, nobody keeps the animals. Target the bulls specifically. Make it look natural. Disease, accident, I don't care. Just handle it." The recording cut off. They sat in silence, the implications settling over them like frost. Cascade had moved from legal manipulation to something darker. They were going to come after the herd, after Baron specifically. "They can't," but Maya's voice wavered. "That's murder, killing protected animals. They wouldn't." "They would," Jack said grimly, "because Baron is the heart of this. He's the symbol, the guardian, the living proof that wild things can't be conquered. Remove him, and the rest falls apart." "Then we protect him," Liz said. "We increase security. We watch the herd constantly. We can't watch every square inch of 200 acres 24 hours a day," Jack interrupted. "And they know it. They'll wait for an opening. They'll use professionals who know how to make things look like accidents or natural causes." Maya stood up, her hand going to the whistle. "I'll tell him, warn him somehow. He's smart. He'll understand." She walked toward the pasture, playing soft notes on the whistle. Baron's head came up immediately, turning toward the sound. He walked to the fence line, closer than he usually came to the house at night. Maya stood on her side of the fence, Baron on his, separated by rails, but connected by something deeper. She spoke to him in the language they'd been developing, part whistle, part words, part something that transcended both. "They're coming for you, the bad men, the ones who want everything. They're going to try to hurt you, to make you sick, or make it look like an accident. I don't know how to stop them, except to ask you to be careful, to stay alert, to trust your instincts." Baron listened. His dark eyes never left her face. And then he did something he'd never done before. He lowered his massive head until his scarred face was level with hers, the fence rails between them. Maya reached through and placed both hands on either side of that ancient scar. "You saved us today, just by standing there, by showing them that some things can't be moved. Now we need to save you, Somehow, we need to—" Barron pulled back gently and turned toward his herd, but before he walked away, he looked back at Maya one more time. The message in his eyes was clear. "I am the guardian. This is my burden, and I will face what comes." Then he was gone, melting into the darkness, returning to his eternal vigil over the valley he'd sworn to protect.
Jack organized what they were calling the Watch. He, Les, and Maya would take turns monitoring the herd in shifts. They'd installed motion sensor cameras at key points. They'd alerted Clayton and other neighboring ranchers to report any suspicious activity. Sheriff Morrison, quietly sympathetic after seeing the video evidence, agreed to increase patrols near the ranch. He couldn't prove Cascade was planning anything illegal, but he could be present, visible, a deterrent. But everyone knew it wasn't enough. Professionals who wanted to harm Barron would find a way. A contaminated water source, tainted feed, a dozen methods that would look like natural causes or tragic accidents. The emergency hearing the next day went exactly as Jack had hoped. 3 independent forensic analysts examined the Cascade contract. All 3 concluded the signature was recent, created within the last 6 months. The ink chemistry was wrong for a 2018 document. The paper showed no age-appropriate wear, and the signature itself, when analyzed under microscopy, showed characteristics of tracing rather than natural writing. The judge's ruling was swift and harsh. This contract is fraudulent. Cascade Energy Solutions is ordered to cease all operations on Miller property pending criminal investigation into document forgery. Mr. Garrett, you and your clients will be hearing from the state attorney's office. Garrett's face was stone. "We'll appeal." "Appeal all you want," the judge said, "but if you or anyone associated with your company set foot on that ranch without explicit written permission, I'll hold you in contempt and order your immediate arrest." It should have felt like victory, complete, total victory. But Jack saw the look Thorne gave him as they left the courthouse. Not defeat, not even anger, just cold calculation. They'd lost the legal battle. They'd been exposed as forgers. Their reputation was damaged, possibly permanently, which meant they had nothing left to lose, and that made them infinitely more dangerous. The attack came 3 nights later. Not against Barron directly. They were too smart for that. Instead, someone cut the fence lines on the eastern boundary, left them open, created escape routes. And then, around 2 a.m., they set off fireworks and sirens from 3 different directions simultaneously. Panic tactics designed to stampede the herd through the open fences, scattering them across miles of wilderness where they'd be impossible to recover. Where Barron, in protecting his family, might get separated, might wander into dangerous terrain, might encounter one of the dozen accidents that could befall a lone bison far from help. Maya was on watch when it started. The explosions jerked her awake, sent her running for the pasture. She could see the herd moving, agitated, starting to panic. The younger animals were already running toward the open fences. She grabbed the whistle and played, not the greeting tone or the calming melody, something new, something urgent, a sound that said, "Stop, danger, wait."
Barron heard it, through the chaos and the noise and the primal instinct telling him to run. He heard the voice of the girl who'd stood in front of bulldozers for him, who'd touched his scar and promised protection. He bellowed, a sound that cut through the artificial chaos like a blade, a command that carried 20 years of authority, a statement that said, "I am your leader. You follow me, not fear, not noise, me." The stampede stopped. The younger animals faltered, torn between panic and obedience. Barron kept playing. Jack and Liz were running from the house, flashlights sweeping the darkness. Clayton and 2 other neighboring ranchers arrived within minutes. They'd been sleeping in their trucks nearby, expecting something exactly like this. They found the cut fences, found the firework launchers, professional grade, timer controlled, placed for maximum psychological impact. Found evidence of at least 3 people who'd entered the property, executed the plan, and fled into the night. But they didn't find a scattered herd. They found 30 bison grouped together, calm under Barron's guidance, protected by the whistle song and the Guardian's refusal to let fear win.
The police investigation found enough evidence to link the attack to contractors previously employed by Cascade Energy Solutions. Not enough to prosecute the company directly, but enough to make their involvement obvious. Enough to generate another wave of negative publicity. Cascade's stock price dropped. Several investors pulled out. The board of directors issued statements about rogue employees and unauthorized actions. Marcus Thorne quietly resigned, though everyone knew he'd simply moved to another subsidiary with a different name. The ranch was safe, for now. The legal challenges had been defeated. The physical attacks had failed. The Millers had won. But the cost was evident. Jack had aged 5 years in 5 months. Liz was already planning increased security that would drain resources for years. And Maya had learned that being a guardian meant living with constant vigilance, constant awareness that the war might pause, but it never truly ended. 2 weeks after the attempted stampede, Jack called a family meeting. They sat in Silas's study, their study now, surrounded by journals and maps and the accumulated wisdom of a man who'd fought this same battle for 50 years. "We need to talk about the future," Jack said. "We won this round, but Cascade won't give up. There are billions of dollars in Devil's Throat. Eventually they'll find another angle, another method, another way to take what we're protecting." "So we keep fighting," Maya said simply. "For how long?" Jack asked gently. "How many years can we live like this, on alert, watching for threats, fighting legal battles we can barely afford?" "As long as it takes," Maya replied. Liz looked at her daughter, seeing not a teenager anymore, but something else, something harder and more certain, a guardian in truth, not just in training. "What if we made it public?" Les suggested. "The crystals in Devil's Throat, the mineral wealth. What if we announced it ourselves, declared the canyon a protected site, made it so public that Cascade can't operate in secret anymore?" They'd find legal ways to force extraction, eminent domain, public resource arguments. It might buy time, but time is all we need, Maya interrupted. Time to build alliances, to find environmental groups who'll help protect the site, to turn Devil's Throat into a symbol that people will fight for. Not just us, everyone.
Jack looked at his daughter with new respect. "That's actually brilliant. Make it too visible to attack quietly, too important to sacrifice." "Dad did something similar," Liz said, pulling out one of Silas's journals. "Listen to this entry from 2015. The best way to protect a secret is to make it a sacred trust. The best way to defend the wild is to make people understand why it matters. Barron teaches me this every day. He doesn't hide. He stands in plain sight and dares the world to challenge what he protects." They sat in silence, understanding dawning. Silas hadn't kept Devil's Throat secret because he was afraid. He'd kept it secret until someone was ready to make it public the right way, to turn it from a target into a treasure that the world would help defend. "We'll need documentation," Jack said, already thinking like the strategist he'd become. "Geological surveys, environmental impact studies, cultural significance reports about the petroglyphs. We'll need to build a case so strong that no court can ignore it." "I'll handle the media strategy," Liz offered. "Turn the story of Devil's Throat into something bigger than Cascade. Make it about preserving the last wild places, about respecting sacred ground." "And I'll work with Barron," Maya said. "Keep the herd safe, keep the guardian strong, because all the legal strategies in the world won't matter if we lose what we're protecting." They made their plans, set timelines, assigned responsibilities. For the first time since inheriting the ranch, they weren't just reacting, they were strategizing, building a long-term defense that might actually work. That night, Maya stood at her window and played the whistle softly. On his ridge, Barron raised his head. Their eyes met across the moonlit distance. The battle for Broken Compass Ranch had been won, but the war, the real war, was just beginning, and this time they weren't fighting alone. They had allies, resources, a plan that extended beyond simple survival into something that might actually change things. But Maya felt no triumph, only a deep bone-level certainty that the attacks would continue, that Cascade or companies like them would never stop seeing Barron and the herd and Devil's Throat as resources to be exploited, which meant she could never stop being what she'd become, a guardian, a voice, an heir to a covenant that demanded everything and promised only the chance to stand for something bigger than yourself. Barron bellowed from his ridge, not warning, not greeting, something else, a declaration, a promise, a challenge to anyone who might be listening in the darkness beyond the property lines. "Come if you must. Bring your machines and your lawyers and your corporate greed. We'll be here, standing, refusing, protecting what you can never understand and will never own." The echo rolled across the valley and faded into silence, but its message would endure, carried by a family that learned that some inheritances aren't about money or land. Some inheritances are about duty, about standing when others run, about saying no when yes would be so much easier. And sometimes, just sometimes, that's enough.
This is the Broken Compass Ranch, where the battle was won but the war continues, where a family learned to fight with truth instead of fists, where a teenage girl and a scarred bull proved that some stands are worth taking. Cascade has retreated, for now. The forged documents are exposed. The attacks have failed. But in the shadows, new plans are forming. New threats are emerging. New predators are circling the last wild places. and Baron stands watch, always, forever, until his last breath. The first season ends here, with victory that tastes like vigilance, with safety that feels like uncertainty, with a family that's learned the most important lesson of all: being a guardian never ends, the watch never stops, the echo never fades. But they're ready. Jack with his numbers and strategy, Liz with her cameras and media savvy, Maya with her whistle and her bond with the wild, and Baron, always Baron, the scarred king who taught them what it means to stand, to refuse, to protect. This is Bison Echoes, where legends are born, where stands are taken, where the wild still remembers what it means to be free. Subscribe for Season 2. The Echo is just beginning, and Baron's story, the real story, hasn't even started yet.